we've got an unboxing. So I bought I wanted just a small handful of auctions on eBay for Japanese PS2 games, and yeah, it came in, so we're just gonna go through it. It's like 9 or 10 games, something like that, so not very long, but when we have a whole bunch of games from the exact same system, it kind of works out nicely that I could just do an unboxing as opposed to doing all the research for it otherwise. So this is going to be a good time, and we'll see some of the cool things that we got. So if I could just get the darn thing open. We are getting there. Okay, the games are right there. I'll pull them all out first just so I don't have to hold on to this packaging for long. And then, yeah, we'll get right into it. PS2, of course, I have a good little history with. Growing up, it was my first home console, so I didn't have a GameCube. I don't know if I got a Game Boy Advance first or if I got a PS2 first, but I did have a PS2 and I played all not the games that most kids play on PS2. So, way more like Ape Escape and like Jam Pack than your Call of Duties or what have you. See, I don't even know the popular games. I just know I've been playing like Frogger the Rescue. Big fan of Frogger the Rescue. So there's a couple extra goodies in here that I'm just pulling out that they included, which is always really cool. American sellers may not always do that, but Japanese sellers are pretty neat for that. So let me just go through some of these goodies real fast because I don't know what they are, but looks like we got a couple Dragon Ball cards. I'm guessing there was Dragon Ball game. Super Dragon Ball Heroes. So there's a couple cards there. We got a cute little Japanese squirrel. Love that. Top 10 consecutive appearances. Makunochi. I'm guessing he's a sumo wrestler. That's what it looks like on the back. This is not what I expected to see. That is really, really cool. Okay, there's that. And they also put a little nice origami little guy in here. That's always cool. It's got some ducks on it. We like that. Okay, so let's get into it. I didn't do full research for these games like I normally do. It's more just like I got quick little info about it. Just the unboxing part's supposed to be the cool thing. So just going in the exact order that I see these games. The first one is Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec, and it's a Sony exclusive racing series that started on the PS1. This game, obviously, all these games released in like the early 2000s, but Gran Turismo is Sony's like the racing series, but this is the first one to be released on PS2. It made the Gran Turismo series made like super leaps and bounds with hardware in terms of moving from the PS1 to PS2, and even so much so it made it not just considered one of the greatest games ever made. It's also the favorite Gran Turismo, even almost 25 years later. I think it was released in 2001. So, even 25 years later, the Gran Turismo community still really likes this one. But it's also, and this was the most interesting piece of info that I got about it, it is the best-selling Sony exclusive ever, which is crazy. I had like one single friend that played Gran Turismo. I seem to remember being at like his vacation house or something and playing it like once with him. I'm not a racing person guy. I could play Mario Kart all day long, but like other racing games, no idea. But yeah, I did not know this was like top of the line Sony exclusive. So cool piece to add in terms of Gran Turismo history. The next game is where is it? Ratchet & Clank 2, or more commonly known here in North America as Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, which is the sequel to the original Ratchet & Clank on PS2. So release history of interesting info, the only thing I can really say about it is that it's one of the few cases that we got a game here in North America first before it released in Japan. So that's always cool, but I have a lot more personal stuff to say about Ratchet & Clank Going Commando, because speaking of having a PS2 when I was growing up, my parents, of the games that they got me, one of them was a Jam Pack demo disc. Now, Jam Pack was a series of demo releases for consumers to just highlight games that were coming out. So I got like Jam Pack, I want to say winter 2004 or something like that, and it had tons of games on it. I mean, I'd have to go back and see what exactly, but there was definitely like football on there. There was a DDR game on there. I want to say there was a Castlevania game on there. But of course, there was Ratchet and Clank Going Commando. So as a kid who did not know what he was doing, to me, beating the Ratchet and Clank demo, which wasn't small, I wouldn't say it was big, but it wasn't small. So beating that all by myself, no guides or anything, at like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old, was really, really cool to me. And now Going Commando has a special place in my heart. Now, I have not played the full game. Really, like, to me, the full game just feels like the demo. I have it, but like at some point I will play this in full. But it is cool to get the Japanese release, because we like getting, variants of games that I do love, even if it is only the demo that I know super well. So Ratchet and Clank 2. I believe there's another Ratchet and Clank game in here, but I'm just going strictly based off the pile I've made here. So next up is World Soccer Winning 11-8, which is just Konami's soccer series, I am pretty sure. It's better known as Pro Evolution Soccer outside of Japan. I'm pretty sure like the Winning 11 brand is like only in Japan. Europe has way more Pro Evolution Soccers. We have a few of them. Here we get more like FIFA. Like FIFA has way more traction here than any other soccer series. But interestingly, the numbering is kind of weird here, because it is the 4th Pro Evolution Soccer game, but it says World Soccer Winning 11-8. So I don't know if this was like a crossover in terms of releases. I didn't look that deep into it. I got it because it was cheap. But like, kind of cool that like a game has 8 entries and then only has 4 in another way of wording it. I don't know, kind of interesting. It's a typical soccer game, but we did actually get this game under this title, World Soccer Winning 11-8 International, on PS2, Xbox, and PC, and it was also the first Winning 11 game to release on Xbox, I'm pretty sure. I don't even like soccer, but it is a cool little piece of history. Okay, so the next game is actually 2 games I'm going to show off. One that actually came in the package, one that I got pretty recently before filming this. But we'll go one by one. This is Jisen Pachislat Hishoho Savannah Park. And then the other game to go along with it is Jisen Pachislat Hishoho Pachislat Hokuto no Ken Special Edition. I don't know why it's Special Edition, but let me explain both of these. So in the title, it is Pachislat, which that's not really the way you would word it, but both of these games are basically casino simulations of slot machines, pachinko games. So if you ever seen like those little like ball drop games, that's pachinko. Slots, you know what a slot is, and I'm pretty sure these are just an entire line of these like casino sims, but they're all, each game has its own theme. This one is a Fist of the North Star, and this one is Savannah Park, which I think Savannah Park was just an actual casino game or casino slot machine that they brought onto home consoles, which is pretty cool. Hokuto no Ken or Fist of the North Star, this is like the 3rd one in this line that is like this. So Japan has a way more tolerance for these like casino sim games, if you will. So like that's kind of cool. These would never float here in North America, but it is cool to get like this line of games that is just obscure enough that you don't really know how it exists here, but still pretty cool. Next up on the pile is Space Invaders Anniversary, which in the past we've talked about the Famicom port of the classic arcade game, one of like the most legendary arcade games of all time, and this is just an anniversary release. I want to say the 25th anniversary? I think it was 25th anniversary. 1978 would have been 2003. Yeah, that makes sense. So I think it was obviously I think it was released in 2003, if 25 years after 1978 was 2003. And it's a compilation of Space Invaders, and I think it's the sequel, Space Invaders Deluxe. Both of those arcade games, but it also has like different like filter variants for these. I remember reading them. I can't remember what they were, but like you could play it like in black and white, in color, and I think also exclusive to this release was, or hear me out, exclusive to this release, to the anniversary release, was a 3D version of Space Invaders where you can change your viewpoint. So instead of looking top down, you could be like behind or in the thing that is shooting, like the spaceship that's shooting, which is pretty cool, very interesting. I don't think we've gotten anything like that since. That could be very, very wrong, and it probably is very, very wrong, but this was at least like the first one to have that in that. So that's pretty cool. Side by side with this PS2 release, there was also an arcade release, only in Japan. There was a European PC release. This game, this PS2 port, was released in Japan and Europe, so North America didn't get the PC version, we didn't get the PS2 version, and we did not get the arcade cabinet. So a very weird piece of gaming history kind of stuck outside of North America, even though it's like Space Invaders, but maybe just for whatever it was, Taito didn't think that this would get traction outside of overseas. So I don't know, kind of interesting, but Space Invaders anniversary. Next up is a series that we have talked about. I'm getting a little more and more fond of it each time we talk about it, but this is Jikyu Powerful Pro Yakyu 14 Keteban. So, talked about the series. It's basically an updated version, so this is kind of interesting. Every start of the baseball season for like the NPB, right? NPB, Nippon Professional Baseball League, is the MLB of Japan. Now, every year they put out a new Power Pros game, which makes sense. That's what we do for MLB The Show. But instead of getting just a roster update every so often before the next game comes out, midway through the season or toward the end of the season, they would put out a whole brand new game that would just have this Keteban title at the very end, or this thing added on at the end. And this is one of those like roster updates. So of course this is PlayStation 2. Roster upgrades are not the exact same that we would get them now, just having basic internet connection. But there is something to be said about how you could put out a regular release of the game and then put out an updated version every single year. I think this was the last time they did it for a couple years, but they had been doing it for several years at that point. So that's really, really impressive that they could pump them out like that. And yeah, one thing I did actually look up when in researching for this, because I've kind of just been talking about these games offhand, where it's like, it's baseball, I like baseball, they're cute, Power Pros, whatever. But I think these games have all sold well in Japan, the entire line. I looked at the Wikipedia page where it like just lists all the ratings and not sales history, but ratings from Famitsu for each game in the series. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe Famitsu can be kind of rough in their ratings. I don't know how true that is. I'm pretty sure that's true. But if that's the case, all of the Power Pros games in the mainline release all scored at least a 30 out of 40. There's like a single one that was like 28 out of 40. So that says a lot if they could consistently put out games that are twice a year and rating, above a 75% consistently. So maybe it's not like the highest rating, but 75% is the bottom. It wasn't the max. So whatever it is, cool. Love talking about these games. Love baseball. Power Pros. Next one is probably the one I'm most interested. I'm going to leave this one for the end, just because this is the one I'm most interested in. The next one, a little different. This is Shin Sengoku Musou 2 or Dynasty Warriors 3 here in North America. So a couple different pieces of info. First of all, Shin Sengoku Musou is a hack and slash spin-off of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which I think we've talked about this series at some point. I want to say tactical RPGs based in I don't want to say Imperial Japan. I don't know if that's the right time frame, but old Japan. And these games are hack and slash spin-offs of that Romance of the Three Kingdoms series of games. Now, this is Dynasty Warriors 3 here in North America, but this is Shin Sengoku Musou 2. So let me get my notes here right. The first Dynasty Warriors was a fighting game and had a different title. I believe that was Sengoku Musou without the Shin in front. But instead of fighting games, when the first hack and slash was released, we got it as Dynasty Warriors 2, but they tacked on the Shin Sengoku Musou. And then this is the third game in the series, second hack and slash game, which is why this is Shin Sengoku Musou 2, but Dynasty Warriors 3 here in North America. So I think I got that right. Definitely correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's the case, pretty neat. I don't know. I see these games like all the time in English. Like anytime you go to any game store ever, you'll find at least one Dynasty Warriors or Warriors game on some console. I also see them always in Japanese, and like every Japanese game listing on eBay, or not every search on eBay has some Warriors game. But it is interesting because the Hyrule Warriors series for Nintendo consoles is based on the Warriors series, and I also think there are some Fire Emblem spin-offs, so there is a little crossover between this series and Nintendo-owned properties, which is pretty cool. I also believe this was another first for the Xbox. The first Dynasty Warriors to release on Xbox was Dynasty Warriors 3, so that's also kind of interesting too, but Shin Sengoku Musou 2. Second to last game for this episode, we're going to go back to Ratchet and Clank. I said there was another one in here. It was all the way at the bottom. And this is Ratchet and Clank 4th Giri Giri Ginga no Giga Battle. I definitely botched that. Or known here in North America as Ratchet Deadlocked. So, of course, it is the 4th entry, Ratchet and Clank 4th in the title. It says 4th right there. But it's the first game to not have Clank as a playable character, as evidenced by the North American title, Ratchet Deadlocked, and not Ratchet and Clank, for example. So the story kind of goes that, like, I want to say you lose Clank, or he gets, you're not able to use him, whatever it is. But I did have Ratchet Deadlocked in English, and I had bought all the Ratchet and Clank games on PS2, and then one day I was like, I'm never going to play these. I couldn't even get around to playing Going Commando, the full game. So I sold off a bunch of games, including Ratchet Deadlocked, but it is cool to get in Japanese. I also, one thing I didn't mention in the first Ratchet and Clank game, is that I love how the artworks for the Ratchet and Clank games, let me pull the other one up. I love how the artworks for the Ratchet and Clank games are more like cartoony, more like hand-drawn, as opposed to like the more animated versions of North American games. Like, I don't know if you can picture what I mean, but like, this is not what the gameplay looks like at all. This is just, I'm drawing a blank as to the word, but it is kind of cool how the artwork is so different from like the North American releases, as with a lot of different things, but so different that you would think that it was more cartoon. That's what I was looking for, cartoony. Looks way more cartoony than the actual gameplay. So that's kind of interesting. But anyway, the very last game we're going to show off is Kiroro Gunso Miro Miro Battle Royale Z. And just look at him. I love this guy. So this is a game based on the Sergeant Frog manga series, which I believe debuted in the late 90s. Another media franchise from Japan that has exploded into all different sorts of media forms. But this is Sergeant Frog, which is a manga and also an anime, some films based on a frog army invading Earth. But Sergeant Frog gets captured by a human family, and instead of, like taking over the world, has to instead do chores around the house. That's like one of the funniest synopses I've ever heard for a manga, but yeah, kind of funny. I absolutely love this. This is just absolutely adorable. And I don't know why I've heard of Sergeant Frog before. It might have been from a friend that have heard of Sergeant Frog before, but I seem to remember, for whatever reason, like looking at that friend showing me like Sergeant Frog merch, and it was all really expensive. And there's 10 total games in this series, and even then, those are like also kind of expensive, at least at a first glance. I would love to collect more Sergeant Frog games, because these are just adorable artworks. But we'll see if we ever get around to that. Maybe this is the first video that we do that. So whatever the case, Kiroro Gunso, Sergeant Frog. And yeah, that's all the games that came in this package, not including the Fist of the North Star, Pachinko, and slot game. But yeah, kind of cool. Kind of cool to get a couple more Japanese PS2 games. I already have a lot, but it is cool to add to the collection. And won these in auctions where none of them were super expensive. I think all 9 cost me like under $40, so that's pretty cool. But anyway, that's all I got for this episode. I hope the unboxing idea was a cool idea. Cool idea, but maybe a little bit more offhand research, not as scripted as some of the other videos are. But whatever the case is, I hope you learned something. If there's anything I got wrong, anything I missed, like I said, research for this one really, really quick, just to have a little bit to talk about while I was opening. So if there's anything I got wrong, anything I missed, please correct me. As always, I would love to continue learning about these games as much as I have hopefully taught you something. So with that said, bye!